Hi, it's Joe Barnes from the Screw the System channel, and in this episode I'm going to be discussing whether the current coronavirus situation is a pandemic or a plandemic. We're going to look at both sides of the story, engage in some deeper analysis, and hopefully alleviate some of your fears. So first of all, let's look at the side of the story that says this is a pandemic. Now here the story is that this virus emerged in a province in China called Wuhan. We're not exactly sure how, but perhaps it had something to do with animals being in close proximity to each other, a virus spreading from an animal to a human, etc. And then with our globally connected world, it spread throughout the world very quickly, within months. As a result of the spread of this deadly virus, we needed to go into pretty much a global lockdown. Here in the UK, we went into lockdown, I think around the 23rd or the 25th of March. Now, no matter where you are on the planet, you probably experienced something similar-ish to what we did in the UK. Okay, your times, the time you went into lockdown may be different and the restrictions may have been harsher or looser, but you will have had some similar-ish experience. And the whole idea behind this is to protect people's lives and protect the health service of the country you live in. This virus is deadly. It is killing people in the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, projected to kill people in the millions unless we stem the flow of it by locking people down, by isolating them so they can't come into contact with each other and therefore spread the virus. The idea is that we do that, it's a temporary measure until we can find a vaccine which pretty much eliminates the spread and the deadliness of this virus. We've had success doing this in the past. We've eliminated smallpox with vaccines, we've eliminated tuberculosis, and we have eliminated polio. All viruses which are far deadlier than COVID-19, so we should in theory be able to come up with a vaccine which can take care of this situation. Now we're doing this lockdown because we care about people. The government cares about people, the media cares about people. We all care about each other, and that's why this is so necessary to stop the spread of this virus. So that's the whole pandemic side of things. This is the narrative that the media pushes, the narrative that the government agrees with. And on the other side, we have the plandemic. Now, the plandemic narrative. Now, for me, I think the key proponent of this, and there are many, it's not just him, but I'm living in the UK, and sort of the main voice, the figurehead for this plandemic argument is David Icke. His main theory is that the world is run by a global elite that can be found in our major politicians, our business leaders, royal families, aristocratic families spread across the globe, which are controlling and manipulating the masses for their own ends. His argument as concerns to the plandemic is that this virus was either created in a laboratory and deliberately released into the world, or that it's in fact a hoax and it doesn't really exist. Either way, the objective behind it all is to eventually get us taking a vaccine which might have a microchip inside it so we can be traced, so people know where we are at all times. The other part of it is to accumulate greater wealth at the top of the spectrum. We're already living in a world where there are huge wealth inequalities, and the global elite want to accelerate these inequalities, want to accelerate the power and condense the power even more at the top and take it away from people below. So part of this plandemic is that cash is going to be phased out, because if you phase out cash, the next step is obviously electronically. It's easier to keep track of people electronically, but the step after that is that we get microchips implanted in us that have all our details, that will be able to track us, and who knows, maybe at some stage they can influence our emotions and thoughts through these microchips. The other thing, as I mentioned, is condensing the wealth at the top. And it makes sense in a way what their theory, the people who believe in the plandemic, what they're saying is that this lockdown is wiping out a load of small businesses. It's wiping out people, sort of middle class people who haven't got enough money to get through it. And when you come out the other side, all that's going to be left is huge corporations. And we are going to have to work for huge corporations because small business, independent business people, we can no longer live or function or make any money because everything's shut down. We can't trade. So in a nutshell, that's the PLANdemic's point of view. Now, where do I stand on this? What are my thoughts? I think, number one, you always have to take a questioning approach to anything. It doesn't suit you well. It doesn't serve you in any way if you just accept what you're told. Now, very recently, there have been, I think it was August, some World Health Organization stats came out about the death rate of coronavirus. And they said that it is 0.6%. I will try to leave a link below to a newspaper article which discusses it. 0.6%. This means that if you catch the coronavirus, you have a 0.6% chance of dying from it. Now, this obviously varies hugely depending on the demographic. For me, somebody who is young-ish, who is healthy, never had any health complaints in my life, my chances of dying would not be 0.6%. They'd probably be 0.05% or lower. For somebody who's in a vulnerable category or is elderly, maybe it wouldn't be 0.6, it might be 2 or 3% chance of dying. But that's if we believe these statistics. That's if we take this 0.6% to be accurate. I question that statistic. I think it's actually less than that. Think about it. The World Health Organization is the sort of chief body and organization that is, in a sense, promoting the coronavirus. They want you to believe that this is deadly. They want you to believe in the severity of it. Of course, this coronavirus validates their existence. It's their chance to be big heroes and potentially save the world. So they're going to give you stats which show the most extreme possibility of the coronavirus killing people. And if it's only 0.6%, which is a bit less than 1 in 200 people die from who actually get this virus, well, how deadly actually is it? Let's break that statistic down. Let's question it slightly. Of course, in that 0.6%, they're probably not including some people who have died of coronavirus, of COVID-19, genuinely in their home alone. They haven't got those stats down. There are probably people they've missed off the list. By the same token though, and this is my guess, there are probably a lot more people who have never been tested for COVID-19, who have had the virus, who have been completely unaffected and carried on to live healthy, functioning lives. Take me, for example. About 2 weeks before the lockdown in the UK, I suddenly experienced a loss of my sense of taste and smell. Didn't really have a sore throat, didn't really have coughing. I got these weird little pains in my sinuses, but it was very, very mild. The main symptoms I got was a loss of taste and smell. Now at the time that was just thought of nothing, but it emerged about a week later that could be a potential symptom and is now a recognized symptom of COVID-19. So let's say, for argument's sake, I had COVID-19. My experience of it was this. I've had common colds which were 5 times, 10 times worse than COVID-19. It was perhaps the most harmless illness I've had in my entire life. So my point here is that there's probably thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who have experienced these symptoms. If you factor them into the equation, that 0.6% death rate from the World Health Organization, probably looks a little bit high. I'm just pulling figures out of the air here, but maybe we've got to pull it down to 0.3%. Another factor which is just been released, another study released, and I urge you to watch this video. I'll put a link in the description below. It's called AwakenwithJP, or it's from AwakenwithJP's channel. He's got a popular YouTube channel, over 1 million people. I can't remember the title of the video, but he talks about the fact that in America there are something around 160,000 reported deaths from COVID-19. But of those 160,000, only 9,000 of them don't have any other comorbidity factors. Comorbidity factors would be you're going to die from something else, cancer, serious heart condition, etc. And that of people who don't have any of those factors joined in alongside their COVID-19, only 9,000 out of the 160,000 have actually died purely from COVID-19. So this information would suggest that we probably need to bring the World Health Organization's 0.6% death rate down a bit. Maybe it's 0.3%, maybe it's 0.2%. And guess what the death rate from flu is? 0.1%. So we're probably talking about something that is only twice as deadly as flu, 3 times as deadly as flu. Do we really need to shut the world down for that? Do we really need to force vaccines on people for that? Now, in answering this question, is this a pandemic or a plandemic? We have to look at the case of, if it is a plandemic, who's benefiting? What's behind it all? Well, one, clearly the media. This is probably the biggest story of the 20th century. They are having a field day. They've got so many eyeballs on TV, so many scared and afraid people waiting for the next update. Maybe more people buying newspapers, certainly more people spending time engaging with the media, which is creating more and more money. Huge tech companies have benefited as well. Google, Facebook, Apple, and others have all benefited hugely in both sales and the rise in their share price since the pandemic. Now that could have something to do with the fact that videos like the one I'm making now, or more extreme videos than this, interviews with David Icke and other videos on YouTube claiming that the pandemic might not be all that it seems to be, or could in fact be a plandemic, they get taken down. You can see why that might be. They don't want, those big tech companies perhaps want this lockdown to continue because they're making so many millions, possibly billions off the back of it, that they want this to carry on and on. As it goes, as far as the government is concerned, I think governments are slightly reactive in this. They are reacting to what the media is saying. The government never wants to look bad. It always wants to look as good as possible in the eyes of the media, because they know that if they have a good image with the media, there's a chance they might get re-elected. When it comes to government, sadly, I don't think it's about doing anything good for the country, for the people. It's about re-election. And that's why they have towed the media's line with the pandemic. The media's line is obviously pumping as much fear as possible out there through its multitude of outlets, trying to get us scared. Because if we're scared, we're going to be invested in the story. We want to find out when the end is. But the end never comes. The end's a year from now. But there's a new strain of the virus, or there's a new virus. The media will keep playing this story again and again, so long as you invest in it, so long as you watch their programs, so long as you read their articles, whether that's on the internet or in physical copy and paper. As long as you keep doing that, they'll keep pumping this story because they know that it sells. They don't really care whether the information they put out is completely accurate. It doesn't matter. As long as they're selling a sensation and you're buying into it, they'll keep doing it. So the media are benefiting. The big tech companies are benefiting. So you can see why this will continue. Even if there's not a sort of concentrated or coordinated conspiracy behind this all, those two very powerful entities, perhaps the most powerful institutions in our world, are keen for this pandemic to continue. But does that mean it's as bad as we're being told? And what are the implications for you? Because at the end of the day, you want to know what kind of security you're going to have for your life, what kind of certainty will you have moving forwards, and are you really in danger? Well, I've given my thoughts already. I explained that this statistic of 0.6%, even if it's accurate, and I pointed out that I have my doubts that it's accurate, means you're pretty much safe. Unless you are in one of these very vulnerable categories, you're fine. We're talking about a so-called pandemic or a virus that is perhaps 2 times, maybe 3 times as deadly as flu. Are you scared of flu? Do we need to lock the world down for flu? Yes, some people get flu jabs, and maybe it'd be wise for some people to get coronavirus vaccines. But the world doesn't stop for flu. Why does it stop for coronavirus? That's the question. Again, I don't think that there's a conspiracy behind it. I just think it's greed and incompetence. Greed on the behalf of the media and the big tech companies, incompetence on the behalf of the government. Maybe not being strong enough to find a real solution to this problem. Maybe not being strong enough to stand up to the media and say we could perhaps work around these lockdowns. And also, it's not good to see people living in fear. If you're feeling afraid right now, try to take solace in those statistics I just gave you and the lack of probability that you're ever going to be seriously harmed by coronavirus. And it also has come to my attention that we as a people, with our reaction to this news and reaction to this coronavirus, are trying to mitigate 100% against risk. And you can't do that. You can't live your life mitigating 100% against risk. Life is risk. There's always an element of risk. You drive out in the car, you go on the road, there's an element of risk. You leave your house, there's an element of risk. Are we going to start saying we can't drive on the road now because there are car crashes? I mean, it is almost getting to that point. We're talking about a virus which at worst is killing 0.6%. I don't think that justifies the media hysteria and the hysteria I see from some people in my day-to-day life. Of course, take precautions. Be safe. Don't do anything stupid. Maybe it's advisable to wash your hands a little more often. Maybe masks are necessary, maybe they're not. Who knows? But maybe you don't want to attend too many gatherings with lots and lots of people. But I wouldn't never live in fear. Take precautions, but never live in fear. So, to summarize this, is the coronavirus a pandemic or a plandemic? You probably understood. I think it's probably a mixture of the two. I don't think anyone strategically is planning this, but I think there's a lot of greed and incompetence behind the whole thing. So, my answer is it lies somewhere in between the two. And the take-home message for you today is do not live in fear. The media is manipulating you. They are always manipulating you. Don't give in to their manipulation. Find your own answers. Do your own research. And above all, as I've said before, do not live in fear. Live in inspiration. Live in love. Live in joy. Before I go, I never do this, and it's sort of come to my attention that I really should, because I don't just make these videos, I write these books. In fact, that's what I spend most of my time doing. My first book, Escape the System, I'll leave a link for it below so you can check it out if you're interested. My second book, published this year, Do the Work You Love. That's one way to support this channel. If you like the content I produce, you can always buy a copy of one of my books. They're not super expensive. Another way is just to subscribe or share these videos with friends if you think they're valuable, if you enjoy them. I will be back with another video soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.